Hi, and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar show that talks about all things essence, that we gather around the campfire and share stories of our own personal journeys with that which is bigger than us, and then come back and catch the vibration, someone's journey that might resonate with you. Maybe it reminds you of part of your journey, or maybe it inspires you. Maybe it calls you forth into a new understanding of your own life, of your own journey, of greater understanding of why you're here in this time on this planet. And I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. I love to have these conversations. I get to have conversations with such interesting people and then share it with you guys. And today, I'm really delighted to have Calvin Witcher with us. Welcome, Calvin.
Hello, thanks so much for having me here. Thank you, everyone that's listening right now and watching, maybe.
So, Calvin Witcher is a world-renowned prophet, a spiritual teacher and a medium, a healer, and a best-selling author, and he's got an international community. He is quite a character if you tune into some of his broadcasts, so that's part of what attracted me, as I like his personality. He has appeared on the two-part documentary, Harry and Meghan, A Modern Royal Romance, where he gave his psychic and astrological insights about the royal union of Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan. And his work can also be seen on Success Magazine and iTunes Top 30 Spiritual Video Podcasts and Amazon, just to name a few. So really excited to have you with us. And, as I always tell my guests, I warn them right before the show, guess what? I'm going to ask you to, be a little vulnerable and share with us some story of your beginning. Because really the people that are tuning into this podcast are opening to their own sacred journey, or maybe they're already on it a little ways and they like to hear other people's, stories. It encourages them, or maybe they are getting ready to open that sacred door and it's a little bit like, you know how it is. It can be a little scary at first. Then you realize it's all love and it's okay. But at the first moment, it's a little scary. So tell us a little bit about your beginning. Like, how did you start on your journey and what was that like? And tell us a little bit about Calvin.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. I sincerely appreciate it. I always love having challenging and comforting conversations at the same time. So with the question you just asked me, I often say that I've come to know that change sometimes comes at some level of exchange, and sometimes that change comes very much in comfort. A lot of times it comes into places of challenge, sometimes controversy to us, and I find that that's something I've just learned to embrace over the years, of this place of ascension, this place of growth, this place of knowing and becoming. And I've learned to just understand that it all works in the grand scheme of our human evolution into divinity. So yeah, my life started out at the beginning was really very indicative of that controversial kind of conflicted conversation. And it was actually something, my calling, as I would say it, was something I kind of ran from a lot when I was younger. And a lot of it, and I'm sure a lot of people that are tuned in right now really can understand that. It's where when you start to have dreams or visions, and you start to have maybe supernatural things happening to you, you either think that you're isolated by yourself, that you're alone. You think that you're going crazy, which I thought I was going crazy plenty of times. And God forbid, if you start having supernatural experiences, then you just are feeling like you're cuckoo for Cuckoo Puffs. um, and so I remember everything when I was younger. Roughly around the age of 8 or so, I started to have a lot of supernatural experiences, which were, I started seeing like shadows. I started seeing what I then would have called angels and demons. And I call them different things now, but at the time that was my Christian terminology, because I come from that's my foundation, history. And I would have things, things levitating around me. On a personal side, I just knew things before they happened. And so that was always very weird, especially for a 8 and 10-year-old and a 15-year-old, because I was having conversations with just strangers. And a lot of times it was, to me, very typical, and it was different because I didn't understand the distinguishing factors between what I knew and what somebody else didn't know that I knew. And that was weird. So I would be having conversations with strangers and saying, "Oh yeah, how is your mom? She's in the hospital, right?" And they were like, "How did you know that?" And like, "Oh yeah, yeah, no, she's dealing with cancer, right? Oh, she's gonna be fine." And so I quickly learned through other people's reactions to me that, oh, okay, I probably shouldn't know that information, or I know information that people aren't so readily accessing. And so then I started learning later, like, oh, you're psychic. And then I started having these abilities where I knew things were going to happen. Like, oh yeah, in 6 weeks you're going to get, you know, you're going to get fired from your job in 6 weeks, or you're going to get a promotion in 6 weeks. And so it became very future focused. And then I started realizing, like, oh, I'm a prophet. Like, I'm able to see what's unfolding. And then I started, you know, talking to loved ones. And that was always a very controversial thing because of the background I grew up in. And it was Christian, and, you know, it was considered demonic and evil or something of that sort. So I literally would be talking to friends at high school or middle school at the time, and just having normal conversations with them. It's like, oh yeah, your grandmother's telling me that she really had, you know, this was going on, this is going on, and this is how she felt, and thank you for being there. And I'm having this whole conversation, and they're like, you know, and I'm like, thank you. Your grandmother says thank you for being there for her 6 years ago when she was in the hospital, yada, yada, yada. And then they're like, my grandmother passed 6 years ago. How did you know that? Oh, you know, and, or even simple things like, oh yeah, your grandmother was at your graduation last week. And they're like, well, that's impossible because she's passed on. And then I realized I was a medium. And it was so interesting because I didn't have a background that accepted that. So everything that I was doing was just completely through my own experiences, and just, I never questioned it because it was just, I had too much proof to say that it was actually real. And later, so I will say back to the question that you were asking, that was just my upbringing. All of it, for the most part, or a big majority of it, was extremely controversial. It was challenging. It felt isolating. It felt weird. It felt like I was going crazy a lot of times. But it was the most powerful catalyst for my life. And I don't take anything away from that. I honor that. And in over 2 decades of teaching other people this path of ascension and enlightenment, I've come to learn that the parts of us that challenge us the most are often the points that change us the greatest. And so I never run away from that. And I teach a lot to just embrace that part of your journey, because sometimes it's the agony that we go through that really help ascend us to greater levels. So yeah, just don't run from it. Just learn to understand it and observe it a little bit more. And I promise you, you'll figure out the meaning of it. It may be 2 or 3 years down the road, but it will all make sense once you continue to go through the path.
I love that. Wow. And you live in Dallas, is that correct?
Yes, right now, at the time of this interview, I'm living in Dallas, Texas.
Texas.
And I've been here for, gosh, I think 2 years now, give or
And
take.
where did you grow up?
I grew up in Virginia, you know, where Virginia is for lovers, in a small little town called Gretna.
Yeah, I lived in Virginia Beach 1 year growing up.
Oh yeah, Virginia Beach is very nice. You know that, you know, Newport Beach, Chesapeake area, Virginia Beach. Love that area. Have some family that lives there in the area too.
Wonderful. Well, what an interesting story. You know, I know that many of us that came here at this time in the planetary cycle came here to help be part of the shift. And you know, if you've been tuned in at all to any station having to do with this, you're going to hear about this, right? You're going to hear, okay, we're in this big planetary shift. It's all happening right now. And my current station I tune into for some of this is Paul Selig's work with the Christ consciousness. And the latest thing that came through really it's making more and more sense. Let's just put it, it's making more and more sense. So like, we're getting ready to shift to a higher a chord, a higher frequency. And so as we do that, we need to ascend ourselves, right? So that's why it's so important that we get into a higher octave together, because as enough of us get into the next higher octave, the lower octave drops out. So, so some of the stuff that's been going on the planet would qualify as being like in the lower octave, right? So like, I mean, Earth's made a lot of progress, right? But like, we still have
Yes.
war, we still have famine, we still have things, right? That would really qualify as being in that lower octave. So the quicker that we can all sort of like bring ourselves to this higher octave, or to the next higher octave that is accessible to us, then we shift the balance, and that lower octave drops out, and the new upper octave available to us opens up. So this is like the whole goal that we're here to do, and it's done on an individual basis that's also collective, correct? So
Yes.
we are individually ascending, and then we're collectively ascending together.
Yes.
And so this is the point in time that people sort of need to embrace this idea that whatever experiential things you're having that might have just started opening up for you, let's say in the last 8 years, 6 years, 7 years, last year, whenever it started opening for you, that like you need to follow that, right? And so
Yes.
get over the fear of it and get past the conditioning of your mind, right? So
Yes.
talk a little bit about because your experience, your journey with the Christian religious conditioning is something that is definitely pervasive in the United States, and it's
Yes.
something people contend with, because I think it can be very simpatico. These are not conflicting things. These are all expressions of the same truth. And talk a little bit about how you made it simpatico for yourself.
That's a absolutely wonderful question. And I'll be quite honest. It was a perspective that I did not always have, and I. But honestly, I find that most points of ascension, or someone coming into their truth, or just understanding what this is all about, you're not always, incongruous with your own level of consciousness, right? And we're always growing and learning, and the best leaders are also the best students as well. Even if you're just a student of your own personal experiences, I found that tends to be the best way to look at life and existence as a whole. And but I didn't used to be like that. I remember very, very vividly when I was in the Christendom side of things, and very deeply, it wasn't, for me, it wasn't something like I just was, I was in church and I was just going to Sunday school and, doing all the things you're supposed to do as a parishioner. I was very, very active. I was our youth president at one point. I became a youth deacon. I was what we called our minister of music, which was pretty much someone that played the piano, but also led the worship service. I was a choir director at one point. I later became a deacon, became an associate and assistant minister, later became a pastor, licensed, ordained. I mean, the whole process. So it wasn't something like I just was a person that sat down in the pews and sang the songs and went home. I was like knee deep in it. Conferences, speaking, traveling, the whole 9 yards. And so I say that because a lot of times, especially for people that hear other people that transition out of Christianity into more New Age or Spiritism, or maybe the occult or esoteric spaces, a lot of times they hear the conversation for people that weren't as active. I was extremely active in it. I was, in the ministry. And so for me, it was very much a big deal, because I didn't just lose a creed, I lost the whole community attached to it. I lost the whole calling and trajectory of the business aspect of it, which is like my career. So everything crumbled with that. And so it was interesting for me at that particular time. I've always been a thinker. Always. I've always been a person that I don't mind, acknowledging and understanding and being aware of my own truth, and then destroying it to recreate it anew. I've always been like that. And so for a lot of religions, not just specifically Christianity, that can pose a challenge, because I tend to say that spirituality is all about understanding how God relates to you, where religion helps to build a structure around that particular faith. I love both of them. I think that we need religion. I think we need, because I believe religion provides a structure. very much like traffic lights and speed bumps do in our communities. They help regulate us. And then spirituality helps make it a little more personal to us. So I kind of was always that rebel as far as thought process goes. And when I was in the Christian space, I was studying, and I studied a lot of things in the Abrahamic faith, Islam, Judaism. I expanded into more mystic traditions, the Kabbalah, Gnosticism. That later went into more Eastern traditions, Buddhism, Hinduism, etc. And then later into other forms of like magic and New Age and esotericism. So when I came to this side of the equation, I kind of did like what I call like the pendulum effect, where I was completely on the religious side, and then I swung all the way over into the spiritual side, thinking that I needed to do that because it was more of a point of polarity, and I needed to present the other part of the conversation. And then later, like every good pendulum effect, like you're on one extreme, you swing to the other, and eventually I kind of found my synergy back and forth. I tend to not say balance and teach balance a lot. I think balance is kind of this illusionary thing we try to tell ourselves when we're trying to find some way of trying to do all things equally as well. And I just don't see that happens on a continual basis. So I tend to talk about how do you live in congruence? How do you live in harmony? How do you synergize in a way? And you may be giving attention, 60% of your attention in this area, and then 40% here. That's not balanced, but it is synergized. And so once I started going through the process, I started not having such a animosity towards Christianity and my faith and how I was brought up, which many people do, and many people are still there. They view their upbringing, especially Christianity, which is a very predominant religion, at least in the westernized culture. I grew up very much hating it. Why did Spirit put me in Christianity? Why did I, undergo the abuse emotionally or, spiritually speaking? Why did I get kicked out of a community that was supposedly love and light and acceptance and all these things? It just didn't make sense to me. And Spirit really started challenging me and convicting me on that, to say that was all for a purpose. And to deny that actually denies the ascension that you've now stepped into. It actually denies the destiny that you're walking into now, because everything that you're experiencing right now is a mosaic of the misery and also the meaning that you've gone through. You've got to learn how to, I love Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She's a psychiatrist, and she's pretty well known in the culture of death and dying. That was one of her books that she wrote, and she talks about grieving a lot. And she talks about this concept of the stages of grief and loss, and she says that at some point we hopefully will get to a place of acceptance and or understanding. I started to understand, or started to get to a point that I didn't always accept what happened to me that was maybe negative, but I started to realize that I could understand what happened. I could start to observe what happened and realize that had meaning. It may not have felt great. I may not want to, repeat that process, and I don't necessarily accept that it happened in the sense of, oh, people should go through psychological, emotional, or traumatic experiences. However, I can understand why it was present, and I can integrate that now into what I do. And so fast tracking that to where I am now, I've learned that it's so powerful because we have a very diverse community, very, very diverse. I mean, we have everyone that is very still traditional Christianity. They love Jesus. They believe in salvation. They believe that Jesus died on the cross, hands down. They go to church still to this day, but they're in our community. And I have people that are on the other extreme, that they are witches, that they are magicians, they're sorcerers. I have people that are, shamans, people that are Buddhists and Hindu. I mean, it's extremely diverse. It's funny. And so I've started to realize that a lot of the conversations I have now, especially with people that either come from the spectrum of Christianity, it becomes very healing. It becomes a point of them understanding what information they did receive at that time. And so it's interesting for me now. And I mean, obviously too, once you start to educate yourself and get more information, you also start to realize that a lot of the teachings that Jesus or the Bible or the Book of Mormon or the Quran or the Nag Hammadi or the Tibetan Book of the Dead or any other ancient text, the Tao Te Ching, a lot of the principles tend to dovetail into one another, and they might not all be exact in their phrasing, but a lot of the essence remains the same. It's that, how do we discover the meaning of life? How do you understand your purpose? What is this all for? How do we ascend to higher places outside of this human, primal existence? They all tend to have a lot of those same principles. And so later I started to realize that, listen, quite honestly, I would have been here anyway had I grown up, Muslim. I would have been here anyway had I grown up, a Jehovah's Witness. I would have already been here because my makeup is still the same. I've always been an investigator in that nature. And so I stopped demonizing the Christian faith and started realizing that, oh, okay, Christianity, it's so funny. I posted this on my social media page a couple of days ago. And I said, you are not a victim. You are a vehicle to someone else's transformation and your own witness of your strength. And it was a powerful statement that Spirit was saying to me, that you're not a victim of your upbringing. You're not a victim of Christianity. You're not a victim of rape. You're not a victim of domestic violence. You're not a victim of a divorce. And that's not to say that those things are acceptable by any means, but it is to say that you can find meaning. You can find the momentum through that experience and not be a victim and realize that was just a vehicle to get you from where you were and really on the path to where you're going now. So I integrate all that back and forth, and I will talk about psychology one minute and then magic the next, and then I'll bridge it with something that Jesus said and then say, oh yeah, but also the Buddha said this, and I love it. It's
I love
it's
that.
great.
That's beautiful. And so what I love about what you just said is that there's different levels of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's, in my training or my understanding, it's based on kind of our soul level capacity to understand things.
Yes.
So we're on a journey. It's not one lifetime. I mean, think what you like, but I mean, I'm of the opinion that it's multiple lifetimes, because I think this experience called life is so complex that you couldn't possibly achieve it in one lifetime. It would just be realistic, people. I mean, look how complicated it is.
Right.
And how amazing that it takes many lifetimes to really integrate and process this beautiful experience. And what I love about this is that as you ascend, as you do your personal work, even just looking at your lifetime experience that you just explained to us, it's like you started off with one framework and understanding, and then as you grew and as you went and you swung the other way, then you opened up this other doorway, this other perceptual lens, through which you started viewing the world. And through my tradition, they call that the assemblage point. So your assemblage point shifted. And it's almost like you could think of it like a window through which you view the world. And so your window was here, and then it went bloop, and you went, wow, there's this whole other thing going on. And then you had new awarenesses, and it opened up another window. And it's like, you're still Calvin, you're still in the same body, there's still other humans in your life, they're probably the same humans, there's still, your job, but now it's at a whole different experience because of the window you're viewing it through is completely shifted. Now and that's what I call working with the sacred. Once you start that sacred journey, those veils start to peel back, and you get to perceive this now in a new way. And as you rise, you perceive it afresh. I make all things new.
Yes, absolutely. And I will say it's so interesting, because that was one of the things I learned to really love about a lot of the work I do, which I tend to say I lead with the prophetic, which to me is, I help people to understand that, I'll rephrase it this way, that a lot of us in the human experience, we become very microscopic in approach. We look at all the details and the little parts of our life, and we scrutinize it, and we judge. We didn't see this quite this way, and we didn't do this quite the best way. And, had I only done this would have happened. And we have, by programming or by philosophy, by just sheer human maybe tendencies, we really look at all of the little small moving parts that is our existence. And what I love about the prophetic is I view the prophetic as very panoramic. I literally hear what people are saying. I understand. I try to sympathize with that as much as possible because any emotion that people experience is extremely valid to them, and I honor that, right? And then I say, let's just raise you up a little bit. Let's give you a bird's eye view of your life. Let me help you understand what is really a strong potential and possibility 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. And as we expand your thinking on that, then these little things that you're worried about is very, very inconsequential. It's almost irrelevant because not that it doesn't have that purpose to you as you think it does, but it fits into a bigger, grander scheme of life than anything else. And like, it's so funny. One of the things I've been really impressed upon, I've been talking about a lot, is this whole thing about criticism and condemnation and judgment coming from a lot of people. And, or I'll say it this way, us absorbing what we feel is criticism and condemnation coming from people, which is kind of really an excuse for us not to show up in our own life. That's really what it is. And I've just been addressing it.
I'm really glad you brought up judgment because that is a big piece.
It's an absolutely big piece. And again, this is why I like the scriptures, because there's a scripture that says that if you are condemned, it is your own heart that condemns you. And it talks about not thinking that God or spirit or really other people are condemning you, that if you are absorbing condemnation or judgment, it is something within you, honestly, that is wanting to accept it for yourself as a way of not showing up in your own divine light. And I've been talking about this probably for about a month now on social media. And one of the things I've been telling people is that, listen, even if you did all things the right way, whatever that is.
Whatever that would be. I mean,
whatever that would be, you're still going to find people that do not, it's not a congruence with them. They're going to be critical. They're going to be judgmental, even if you're trying to fit in. So if you don't fit in, you're still going to get a different level of criticism, judgment, and condemnation. What's the purpose of it? What's the point? The point is that at some level, you're going to find someone that is not in congruence with your level of consciousness. And that's okay. That's their truth, and that's fine. Never use that as an excuse for you not to withstand or to accelerate on your particular path. And to, take on the judgment or criticism that is always around us, you're just allowing for yourself to not go to places that I feel that is part of your destiny. And so I've been really calling people to just step into that more. And that's not to say to be mean and vindictive or to be a jerk or anything like that. It's not to say that it's not going to rub people the wrong way, and that's okay. It's such as life. I think it was, I don't know who said this. It was a beautiful quote, and I'll have to find who said it later, but they said that every great truth once started as a heresy. And I've never forgotten that. And it's a beautiful way of, giving language to something that I feel like a lot of people that are or pioneers or on the forefront of new ascended thought, that's a lot of how it feels, and definitely how a lot of it is said to us, that it's heretical, it's blasphemous, it's not love and light, which anyone that follows me for any particular time knows that I'm not a separatist when it comes to spirituality. I embrace it all. I believe that love and light has a purpose. I believe that the shadow has a purpose. I believe
so glad you're saying that.
Yeah, I believe all of it has meaning and purpose in our life, and I don't see it as any, I see it as distinct, but I don't see it as a detriment to one area of our life or the other. So I teach it all. And so it's interesting. So I say to a lot of people that are just tuning in to this is that, it's so funny I'm even saying that because I just had a conversation literally probably an hour ago where someone was saying that they're so tuned into where they are right now that some of the people in their community felt that they needed to tune out. And they were kind of doing too much spiritual stuff. And one of the things I told them, and they tagged me, and so they wanted my insights on it. And one of the things I said to them, I said, it's really not about tuning in or tuning out as it is about fine-tuning that which is you. And we're all doing that. And every day, every moment, every situation, it's all about, am I in congruence with the consciousness that I'm
with your own frequency,
your own frequency. And I'm literally not concerned with what anybody else is doing. That is their responsibility. I'm a firm believer of that. I do believe in collective consciousness, and I also believe that collective consciousness has to come through individual initiation. That's not my responsibility to figure out what you're doing or what you're not doing.
whether it's right for you. Like, that's
Whether
none of
it's
my
right for
business. You know, I had a big lesson around that because I'm a mom and I have 2 sons. And
Yes.
along the journey of my sons growing into their maturity, my older son has always been quite the rebel and, you know, definitely took a lot of my attention, like trying to figure out how to guide him so he doesn't self-destruct.
Right.
This is, you know, one of those powerful beings. And at one point I realized that I could stop worrying about him, because if I knew that I had a spirit team that was guiding me through this incarnation, then I would then have to also know that he has a spirit team guiding him through his incarnation.
Absolutely.
And that my ex-husband has a spirit team guiding him through his incarnation, and my other son, and like everybody has their own spirit team, whatever that is for you, like in your understanding, guiding you through this. So you don't need to worry about somebody else not having assistance. Every single human being has assistance on this plane. You know, so no worrying about that. And then the other thing is that, you know, everybody's operating at their own level of understanding that they're currently able to hold.
Yes.
So knowing that, like, these layers peeling back, like we were talking about, like your understanding, like this layer opened and then this window opened and then that window opened and then this window. And everybody's operating from their own, whatever they're able to hold the understanding of. So non-judgment is really then allowing that you are at a current level of understanding, and this other person you're very tempted to judge is at a different level of understanding, and that it's not anything to be proud of either, because that's a trap, but to just be in understanding that your understanding is opening in this way currently, and their understanding is currently opening in this way, and it's for a purpose, and to allow it to just be so. And if it's not resonating with you, perhaps that's just because it's not meant to you, it's not your path, or perhaps it's because, you know, it's a different level of refinement than you can receive.
Oh, absolutely. And it's, I totally have have a special place in my heart for parents, because I'm a parent as well. We have 4 boys.
Oh, wow.
So I at different, you know, what do they call them, like stair-stepped ages. So right now they're 10, 8, 7, and 4. And so they're, you know, different ages, different stages, different, you know, personalities all around. And so I get that unique, honestly, upbringing, because a lot of us, I don't know how it was with you. I grew up in a system that you were taught to, in a sense, control, you know, your children and society, and that was religiously driven, a lot of it. It was societally driven, a lot of it as well. And so to even be on this other paradigm where, and I believe in structure. I'll talk about that in a moment. I totally believe in leadership. And just kind of, I feel like I always will. And then there's this other dynamic that's exactly what you're saying, which is to say, this is who they are. And I tend to come from a lot of very psychological and self-development perspective of it that says, okay, I'll address the behavior, but I'm not trying to modify the personality,
Yes.
which to me is different. My child's personality and their quirks and how they see things, how they put it together, that's in my, how I look at it, how I teach it, is that's their unique God configuration, and that's meant to be here. And it's now, behavior-wise, a lot of that goes into teaching them moderation and when to do certain things. And you probably shouldn't walk across the street without looking both ways, because you want to live to, you know, eat another day.
Yeah.
So I do need to lead you and guide you in that particular standpoint. And sometimes it feels controlling, but it is for your betterment. And again, as a parent, you really get that.
Oh, yeah.
It's so funny. I tend to say a lot of times, I feel like the best spiritual leaders should really be parents at some level, because there's a unique relationship that happens there. And it's not to be, you know, separate as on any level, but I'm telling you, it's just very unique. You have a different level of God and spirit and the universe when you have a child that is just unlike anything else that,
And when
that
you have to take care of the child and like guide the child, and it brings
yes,
out, like, for me, it brought out all of my early childhood stuff. Like,
yes,
it brought it all to the surface when I had my baby, and I didn't even know that was all buried inside of me. And then I had to deal with it, and I had depression and all these things. And that was an
yes,
initiation to motherhood that I needed to go through. It was very painful, but it was necessary. Like you were talking about, some things are painful. And
yes,
then when my son, my older one, the one that was such an adventurer, and he turned 18, and he really needed, it was just a little bit before he graduated high school, but he needed more freedom. And
yes,
he was claiming it in a way that was not appropriate for our house. And
yes,
'cause I have a new husband with younger children, and so we have to be
yes,
very careful. And so I had to say, okay, well, here's your options. You can stay and follow the rules, or you can go explore your freedom. And so he took that journey, and I at some level, it just, like, the actual experience of him leaving and doing that, like, almost, it just felt like my heart was being ripped from my chest.
yes,
But we had to go through that initiation so that I wasn't like mother henning him like through his whole life. Like, he needed to exert his authority over his life. And for about 6 months, he made some choices that were very questionable,
right,
But on the other side of that, he now understands his shadow and why it is that those choices came about, and why it is so important for him to now be very firmly in his faith and very firmly in his path, to be paying attention and mindful. So, was it wrong? Was it right? It just is, and it's what he needed in his
yes.
development.
Oh, absolutely. And to me, I think that's a beautiful example of how I look at like even like the religion and the spirituality side of things. I say, listen, and I tell my kids the exact same conversation. I promise you that the conversation you just had, you said you had with your son, I had that with my oldest son this week, literally almost word for word. And one of the things that I teach our community and definitely our children is that your relationship with God is your relationship. You need to cultivate that. My job as the teacher, the leader, the parent is to help you understand how your relationship personally is relevant in society, which is a little bit different. So, yes, there are rules or guidelines or principles, however you want to say that. I think we demonize words too much in our society. Like, I'm a firm believer. I love terms like obedience and submission and rules and regulations. And we can make it pretty if we want to and say principles, but they're still the same thing. But
Yeah, like,
that's
it's just
another
stuff you
conversation.
gotta do.
It's stuff you got to do. It's like cleaning the bathroom. You can call it whatever you want to. Just got to be done by somebody, even if you hire it out. And so one of the things I was teaching our community and our children is that if I don't teach you the relevance of systems, the relevance of boundaries, the relevance of guidelines, I am not teaching you the principle of honor. And then that's a problem because it
Yes.
is dishonor that causes rape in our society. It is dishonor that causes somebody to go into a synagogue and shoot it up. It is dishonor that causes people to call women out of their name. It is dishonor that causes people to disrespect our police officer. That is all born of dishonor. If I don't teach you that, that's how that occurs in our society. It becomes very relevant for me to model that and really teach you to respect that in this home. Because if I can teach you to respect it here, you'll do it at your job. You'll do it in your business. You'll
You'll
do it
know
at the
why.
mall.
But
You'll know
sometimes
why. Absolutely.
there are some souls on the planet who need to experience it for themselves.
And I
And if
totally
that's your
understand that.
child, well, you just hold him in love and light, and you're having an experience. And this is another point that you raised up earlier, which I think is a really good distinction for people, is the judgment is not for the soul or the personality.
Right.
You can judge the action, you can discern. I like the word discernment
I
better.
like discernment.
You can discern that the action is not in the highest way for the person. However, it might be the pertinent thing for a lesson that's needed, right, in order to advance. So sometimes, like you're talking about the shadow, sometimes the people we love, we can see them like getting ready to like just speed right into a brick wall.
Yes, absolutely.
And we see it coming, right? Because you're a prophet, I'm a prophet. I can see it coming.
Absolutely.
I'm like, oh, that's a brick wall ahead.
It's going to happen.
You gotta just sit back and go, yep, let the brick wall happen, because it's going to teach them more profoundly than you any words you could say are going to teach.
Right, and it's funny. You know, even when I use the term judgment, to me, I look at judgment and condemnation and critiquing and ego. I look at that as all things. It's like you have negative aspects of it. You also have positive aspects of it. You have neutral aspects of it as well. I view that if you're a teacher, your job is to judge it, or discern, or to give a distinction between we should do this, maybe we shouldn't do this. And sometimes it's not an issue of you shouldn't do it. It may be not the right time. It may be an inappropriate place. It's just there are a lot of dynamics that are played in there. And part of the job as a parent, you know this, part of the job as a leader is for me to help you actually have a level of personal discernment and judgment and operate from that paradigm. So it's funny. It's like, yeah, there are places and times that we need to judge. And here's the funny thing is, even to say I am an individual, I am authentic is a judgment. You are judging or comparing who you are in relationship to other people. When everybody talks about their business, and this is what makes my business different from other people, it's a judgment. It's not to say it's a negative condemning judgment like I am better than you. It's just to say that this is what one person does, this is what I do, and the distinction between that is a form of spiritual judgment. I know that a lot of people have problems with that come from religious upbringings, because we were told judgment is a negative thing that God does when God doesn't like something.
Yeah, and I see that paradigm is, I just that's the one where, listen, I don't know. The more I rise, Calvin, the more I see that the judgment doesn't come from God. If there's judgment and condemnation, it's coming from ourselves towards ourselves.
Absolutely.
And then the more that you judge yourself, the more apt you are to judge another. And all the judgment is in separation. That quality of judgment creates separation.
Yes.
And so that's really the ego that's creating that. You know, it's not your higher self. The higher self says, okay, you did this thing. What was the outcome? What was the lesson? Where are you now with it? How has it grown you? How has it expanded you? How has it brought you to a new understanding of yourself? And from that place, you can accept the decision and move forward with a new choice. It's all about choices.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And I've said this on so many different levels, is that we understand things because we've had the experience of a thing. That if you've never had an experience of something, it becomes very, very difficult to give language to it. And so I've been talking about this a lot also lately, is that if you're recognizing anger, judgment, negative ego, condemnation in somebody else, it means you've had have personal experience with it. I understand anger very, very well. I used to be a super angry person, you know. And I know why that anger was there with me. A lot of my anger when I was younger and in my teenage years, which kind of seems to be a mark of a rite of passage for teenagers anyway, but still. A lot of my youth anger came from me having these abilities and spiritual enlightenment without a place to hang it. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a teacher. It became very, very frustrating because I felt like I was going crazy, and then people were condemning me, and it was just weird. And then I hated God, and that was a whole other chapter there. So I feel like the anger was, I had an explanation for it. Still don't excuse it. I've had to do a lot of apologies over the years for it, that I wasn't in a space of connected consciousness where I knew exactly why it was present. But I can recognize people that are angry because I have been that, and I have points now that I get angry with. I'm like, you know, I was even this week, I'll give you a prime example, that we have many areas of our life that we're ascended, and we have other areas that we're very, very distinct in our humanity, and I own that. And I own all of it.
Very true.
I was on a broadcast. Well, I wasn't on live the broadcast, but I was listening to a broadcast this week, and someone had said, a preacher in the Christian faith had called people in the LGBT community, the gay community, roaches, and I was like,
yeah, and that will make you feel like a reaction, right?
It brought up a very strong reaction with me immediately, and I said, okay, very primal, very instinctual, very parental, because I have a lot of people in our community that are gay. Not all of them. We have a lot of straight people and bi people and polyamorous people and single people and
you have explorers.
We have explorers.
Explorers of human consciousness.
Right, and my thing is like, I don't ever think about it. I don't kind of care. But when I heard that, my immediate instinctual reaction really wasn't even condemnation. It was from a place of protection, because I knew a lot of my people were also listening. So I don't even remember. I said something to the effect of, this is the problem with a lot of leadership right now. It's being insensitive to where people are in their own personal journey. And I still hold to that statement. And then I switched it around and I said, well, you know what? If gay people are roaches, and I've had a history with roaches when I was younger, roaches are very resilient. Roaches will outlive a nuclear bomb, and they'll probably outlive all of us on the planet. So I said, so if anything, you just gave a compliment to all the gay community that they are resilient, that they're strong, that they are, powerful, that they are, they have more within them than a lot of other species that we know of as humans. I said, you know what? I can flip that whole thing around. I can still honor and understand where you're coming from, because I get it. That's your paradigm, and I'm not even trying to come against it.
Change your mind, yeah.
Right. Although I may not agree with it.
Yeah, I don't agree
on any level. I may not agree with it, but I can also say, you know what? And I took it to another layer to say, I'm not a part of a lot of those kind of conversations, but a lot of my community is. So I need to be able to understand when my community rises up in a place of anger or frustration or sadness and depression, it may not have come from this leader. It may have come from another leader. And I do need to be involved in those conversations, because it gives me a pulse on the very intimate details of my people's life, which is why I keep, back to love and light, I keep talking and encouraging people that are more fully in love and light to say, that's wonderful, but try not to lose that human pulse of what people are experiencing. People are experiencing rape and infertility issues and miscarriages and wars and discrimination as being women and unfair, weird things in the workplace. So there is very much a shadow and a dark side of this whole Ascension project or experiment.
Well, it's definitely revealing the shadows, so we have a chance to make a choice. Absolutely. But this statement that was made is a prime example, right, of judgment. So in this way, like this person, and this is really the trick of being a leader, I think, a spiritual leader of some kind, and for your community or for whoever, it's like, if you find yourself in that spot of leadership, like there is such a big responsibility to be even more mindful, to not create separation through your judgment,
yes.
to really be much more involved in the inquiry and the question,
yes.
to direct the question back to people, and to not then be like a one creating that divisiveness or creating that separation or creating, because if you're judging someone in that way, then you're sort of like saying, well that's outside of God. But
yes.
in actuality, if you're saying that's outside of God, then you're putting yourself outside of God as you're doing
yes.
that. So
absolutely.
the key as a leader is to really be in non-judgment of everything, to understand that it's not your place to judge it, actually. because you don't have like, you're not aware of like what the life journey soul path is for someone who's just incarnated to be gay or lesbian or transsexual or bisexual or any of that. Like, if that's not your journey, you're not the one who incarnated as that. So it's not for you to judge. It's not for you to judge anyone else's journey. It's for you to teach non-judgment, actually. And so that would be the encouragement I would give that person, is to step back and do a little inquiry, a self-inquiry on, have I created separation? Have I said that this is outside of God? Have I presumed to know that this soul isn't meant by the Creator to experience exactly what they're experiencing?
Yeah. And it is interesting because even with me, I had to, I am always, even with my own philosophy, spirit gives me something, I digest it, I observe it, I critique it, I obey it at every point, and then after it becomes a very relevant truth to me, I then say, discard it.
Let it go.
Every
Spirit
time,
of
let
death.
it go.
Spirit of death.
Spirit of death. It's funny, and I tell people that, like, listen, I do that with my own revelation. I say, how is it giving me life and relevance now? And then crucify it, kill it, destroy it, and allow something new to arise out of it every single time. So even when I heard it, like, back to the statement, I went back and said, okay, the thing that, is showing up in your life that triggers you, reveals you.
Yes.
That's where you have some work in. And that's okay. That's good. And also, to take it to a higher level of how I teach, that is also part of you. You are your brother's keeper. There is no separatist in that. So if there is something that your brother is saying, it is as if you are saying it. You need to come to a level of continually exemplifying and expressing your own truth. I'm a big believer that every expression empowers another. So even if it sounds bad, and it's a horrible thing, I would say, to say, it's empowering something else. I believe that dark empowers the light. I believe that the sickness empowers the health. And I don't see them as any separatists. I've said this to so many people I'm a healer too. I said, listen, if people stop being sick, you're out of a job. You're kind of out of a purpose.
Or you sort of like ascend into the next place, right? So, because I don't want to keep anything stuck where it is. So right. I'm a healer as well, and I don't want to create a paradigm where I always have to have sick people around me. So I'm saying, well, my job will evolve in ways that I can't even imagine at this moment when we're ascended, and then I'll be needed in new ways that I can't even project forward in this moment because I have no concept of what that might look like, but I know it's going to happen, and I'm always going to be needed. So there you are.
Absolutely. You are always needed for the season that you show up in. And that's okay. And it teaches you to not be too concrete and too cemented in one particular paradigm. It's like right now, in this season, in this time construct, this is how Spirit is revealing itself through me. And that's okay. And that may shift in 2 months. And it may not shift in this generation. And that's fine. And I have learned to just own into that configuration that's constantly evolving. And so it's fun. It's sometimes very comforting, sometimes, or a lot of times, very challenging, because I do believe that sometimes we've been taught to be beings of comfort. And so it's a journey that I feel like we're constantly, it's funny, even people that talk about ascension and evolution is like, well, to me, I view that as a constant process that's unfolding. It's just, comfort is not something that I feel that leaders get the luxury of always having or ever having. And it's fun. And it's funny because even as I'm talking about this, one of the things that I even taught our membership, because we have a membership, I told them this week, I said, listen, you will have the experience of all things at some particular point. You will have the experience.
Maybe not in this life, but
maybe not in this life, but you will eventually have the experience of being a snail and a horse and an eagle that soars on the back of the wind, and a god and a deity and an ancestor and a female and white and black and red hair and bald. You're going to have that experience at some point. Single, parent, miscarriages, all of it. And that's fine. Honor where you are right now. Honor that how you're showing up, whether by choice or whether by divine intervention, it serves a purpose. And that's great. I believe it was Matt Kahn, Kahn, that said
I
it.
love Matt Kahn. Yes.
I think it was him that said, whatever arises, love that.
Yeah.
And I hope it was him because I'm going to attribute it to him. And I never forgot that when I heard it years ago, and I said, absolutely. Whatever shows up, learn to understand it, observe it, absorb it, love it, wrestle with it. I'm not saying that it always is going to make sense, but if it's showing up in your consciousness and in your environment, it serves a purpose. And that's, honestly, that's been a lot of my mission. I feel over my lifetime, but definitely of late, is to say, whatever you see rising in you and being revealed in you, it has relevance. Whatever's being revealed has relevance. Our job and our mission is to figure out, how do I apply it? How do I become more aware of it? How is it just for me? Does it apply to my community as well? Is it for leaders, or is it for people that are still stuck in the shadows and want to be liberated? Who does it? And honestly, it may just be for you, and
Well, and
that's okay.
your service could be your ascension, right? I mean, like,
Absolutely.
I have a difficult relationship right now with someone I care about, and I just took a retreat for a week, and one of the things I said is I want to leave all of my negative feelings around it here. Like, I just want to let it
Yes.
be, and I want to move forward with a whole new understanding. And when I come back, I want to be a different person in relationship with it, and I want to be on a new path with it. And so, as I was opening to messages and listening as to like how to heal this, the message came through, Carrie, with this person, there's just no talking. Like, that's the new rule. Like, there's no speaking, because the words are the things that are getting in the way and causing the trouble, because the words, the word is a powerful thing.
Absolutely.
And when you don't know how to use the word correctly, like, you can create some mischief. So in this particular relationship, the word has been being used in creating some mischief. It's a little out of hand. So in this way, I would just show up and be with this person with no words and just be. And my vibratory frequency of the work that I've done will be the healer for this person in my life that I care about. It will be the thing that heals without words. The words aren't necessary, just the love that's in my heart. And this frequency I've been able to fine tune and absorb and create within myself. And then I can leave and let this person integrate that without even knowing that that's what's happening. This person doesn't even need to know that that's what's happening. Just no words. So I'm suggesting that as we get advanced on our pathway, like, it might be more simple than you even can imagine. It could just be showing up as yourself, as the new you that you've done your work. You've spirit of death. You've let it all, the history go. You've learned your lessons. You've ascended, and then you start the new process over again. And then you just walk around in the world with an open heart and love, and it just touches everybody, even if they don't know that's what's happening.
I love that. That's such a spiritually, and I would say even humanly mature thing to say. And I'm a firm believer of having moments of silence, honoring the word, and using it in a way that really is reverent, if I can say it that way, reverent of the word that comes through.
Respectful of its power.
Respectful. or as our ancestors used to say, if you don't have anything good, or I would say effective to say, just don't say anything at all.
Don't say anything. It's
just
better
silent.
that way.
It's just better that way. And so, like, I liken that to a lot of times when I do talk to people about the times that they're grieving, let's say, like, specifically a loved one. And I've taught other ministers and practitioners, I said, listen, you don't always have to speak to be comforting to people. You don't always have to fill the void and the silence with so many words for you to still be just as effective. Sometimes just, if you're at a funeral, someone passed, or maybe someone's calling you, sometimes it's just about you being silent and listening and allowing for their pain, their challenge to then inform you the next decision. And that's okay. That's fine. And that's a part of maturity. And sometimes it's not even the silence. Sometimes it's a matter of asking and saying, what do you need to help you in the next journey or in this particular journey that you're on right now? And then allowing for them to give you then the answer. Everything is not a teaching moment. Everything is not a, let me be the leader and the guru and save the day. And listen, I'm about leadership. I'm about being a guru. I'm about being a master. I'm about being an ascended one. I am about that. I love that. God, please give us more people that are taking ownership of divinity and expressing God in the world. I love that. I actually think we have very few of that.
We have a rising tide of it.
We have a rising tide of it, and I love that way of saying it. And my thing is to help people to step into that tide all the more. So yeah, I love how you say that. It's like, sometimes it's just remain silent, allow for spirit to reveal it. Maybe you don't need to instigate it, and maybe that's been a part of the problem or the challenge. Maybe I've been instigating it through my own level of trying to control the conversation rather than just letting the conversation reveal itself. And that's okay.
But this is part of your gift too. So we're going to conclude. We're going to wrap up. I was debating whether I give you a little prophetic moment or not. I don't know. It's up to you. But what I was going to say is that listening is a really important part of the work that you and I do is listening.
Yes.
It's when you can learn to listen that all this insight rushes in. So listening is a really beautiful gift that anybody who's interested in maybe cultivating some of these abilities for themselves to realize that we're all able to access these abilities. It could take some lifetimes to figure it out, right? It may not be right away,
Yes.
but you can cultivate it starting now by doing some listening.
I am telling you, that is probably the perfect place to conclude or to transition as well, because I'm telling you, that is probably my top 5 things that I teach. I mean, like religiously, is that it's funny, and I talk about this a lot. It's like, I actually am not a talker. I'm not a speaker. What I do is I'm just a profound listener. Only thing I'm doing is I am regurgitating and reflecting that which I have heard because I've sat in it. I've listened. I have closed my mouth. And I tell people, like, if you hear me speaking something, it's always off of the heels of me being silent, 100% of the time. And so what I found, and I love, I heard it from Franklin Covey, but I believe it came from some other French philosopher that said this. And they said, seek first to understand, then be understood. And that's something that I've just taught constantly over the years, is that we've got to stay in that place of understanding, silence, being still, whatever, meditating, whatever you want to call it. And then from that place, understand what spirit is saying to you. And then from that place, speak. From that place, express. And a lot of times, many people that are trying to speak, they're actually trying to come from a place of trying to be understood by other people, which is not bad. I think we are all seeking to be significant in what we do. And I think that's powerful. Like, be powerful in your own genius. I love that. I also feel like to be the most effective, come from the place of silence, like what you just mentioned. Come from the place of stillness. What is spirit saying to you now? What is God revealing to you in this particular moment? And once you understand it, is that information that you're even supposed to speak? Because not all information that's revealed to you is information that's meant to be shared. It's just not. And then a lot of it is. And some of it is God speaking to us personally, and maybe it's not meant to be a collective word at that particular time. But you learn that maturity in the silence. Absolutely. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, and I had to learn that lesson around sharing because I got really excited about my gift when it started unfolding, and then I wanted to share it with everybody. And so I've had to learn that about like, okay, some things are just for you to enjoy, or for you and the people who experienced it to enjoy, and not necessarily to share and broadcast. So like that's been a big. I'm a sage as well. I'm designed to be a sage, so
Yes.
I just want
And
to get
it's
out there and share.
right. And the sage part, and right, and I totally get that. And thank you for honoring that too, even within yourself. And I tell you, like, we still have sages, we still have gurus. To say we don't have spiritual sages and gurus and teachers and masters is like saying we don't have parents in the world. Really?
No, we have them. We're just, we're just getting up. We're the rising tide.
We're the
Just,
rising tide. We
anything
want
is
parents.
possible. Just sit back, people, and watch the show because God's got a plan.
God's got a plan, and we're
God's got a plan,
participating in
and we're the backstage crew are getting ready to come out on stage. Speaking of which, I've gotten a lot of visions about the stage that I'm going to be on, and it's been really interesting. And I just I think when you get these visions, you just have to honor it, just enjoy it, and just trust it, and just let it unfold. It's like,
Oh, it's so funny, absolutely. Because it's funny because a lot of times I've been teaching the other, like a lot of the paradigm of the prophetic or like that future side of things a lot lately, mostly in our private community. And one of the things I've been telling them is that I flow back and forth. I strongly believe that the prophetic is giving you facts of the future. This is going to happen. Just wait and see. And I also believe that there is the third witness or the human element that sometimes causes that other variable in there that can shift it sometimes. It may shift the timeline, it may shift how it's showing up. And later, we have 2020 hindsight, we say, oh, now it makes sense. The prophecy was still true. How it was configured may have been rearranged very, very slightly. And so one of the things I talk about a lot, whenever I'm doing private readings, I will tell people, I said, listen, sometimes about 20% when I am really in deep with somebody, I may give you a prophecy and it may not connect right now. And I'm okay with that because after 25 plus years of doing this, I understand that it happens a lot of times like that Spirit is revealing something to you that you don't have a frame of reference with and language with. And that's okay. And this happened to me, I think this was about 2 weeks ago. I have to check my Facebook because they put it on Facebook. I had someone I did a reading for, and they posted on my Facebook timeline, and they tagged me, and they said, I had a reading with Calvin, and at the time when he started speaking things, it made zero sense, like absolutely no sense. I didn't understand it. I couldn't connect it. And now, they said, I'm watching the video replay, I'm checking my notes. Every single thing that he spoke absolutely is coming to pass now, like he said it. And then I went back and I said, when did I actually do that reading? So I went back and looked at her review, and I looked at my calendar, and it was 6 months prior. And I said, this is a perfect example because 6 months ago, she wasn't in the reception to be able to even understand what was happening, which is fine. It's not judgment. It's not condemnation. It happens with all of us like that. But it was a testament to say, like with you, Spirit's giving you those visions, those dreams, those insights, those visions, however we look at it. Sometimes it feels like a nightmare. It just does.
I'm getting more comfortable with it. I'm okay with it now. There's like thousands of people out there, and the first time I saw it, it scared the crap out of me. And now I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, right. Okay. A lot of times what I tell people is like, sometimes it's not specifically the incident that's the issue. It's the interpretation of the impression that Spirit is giving you. So a good example would be, I've had prophecies before, and I hold to them. They're still absolutely true. And I've had people to say, you are going to speak to thousands of people as a prophet. You're going to speak to millions of people. And I remember very, very clearly when those happened, 1997, 2001. I can name the people. I can almost tell you exactly what I was wearing when those words came forth. Here's the funny thing. I have not physically spoken into a crowd of millions, but let me reinterpret that. I'm on social media all the time. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I am speaking to millions. It's just virtually.
Yeah.
And so I had to start retraining my mind to say, that prophecy is being fulfilled, and I still own it too. I will speak to a crusade or an audience or whatever of millions of people at one particular time physically. And so sometimes what I have found that even in prophecy is that we have a way that we think it's going to show up. And God is like, duh, you're already doing that.
You're
Or
already doing it. Yeah.
that word has already been fulfilled in you. You're already speaking to thousands. You're just not acknowledging it because you feel like it's not the grand scheme of the Staples Center in LA or something. It's okay. And I still hold to that. You know what? I want to go to Africa, or I want to, have a tent crusade or revival, whatever the case is, here in the United States, and have tens of thousands of people there physically. Still want that. And I believe I still want that.
Let's make that happen. Make it so, Calvin. Let's make it so.
Let's make it so. And I don't say it from a place of like, oh, I've got to be so suchy much. I say it from a place of anybody that's ever done an in-person event, like I know you have, there's such a kinetic energy.
Oh, it's great.
I'm telling you, it's nothing like it. And on both levels, on the presenter and on the participation level. It's just
the healing, the group healing energy in that is so amazing.
Absolutely. So why would I not want that? Why would people not want to be a part of that? So I'm still ushering in.
We're going to do it, Calvin. Make it so.
And so for you too.
Yeah,
absolutely. Make it so. It's absolutely, it's there for you.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Well, so I know people can join your community. Tell us a little bit about that before we wrap up this.
Yeah, absolutely. We, our community, well, thank you so much for having me here. I want to make sure I definitely get the opportunity to say that first and foremost, that anytime that I get a chance to speak, whether it's individually or whether it's collectively in like a broadcast or a medium like this, it's an honor to me. I always say it like this, like people don't have to invite you. People don't have to listen to you, whether it's even a Facebook free live stream or a podcast. People don't have to do that. So if people decide to show up and honor the word that is expressed through me in my unique way, I have tremendous respect for that. And so thank you. and for all the people that are engaging, whether listening or watching or, whatever paradigm you are participating in, thank you too. I honor that. I really do. So that's one. But yeah, people can go to my website. It's calvinwitcher.com. And honestly, I have a lot of free content out there. If you go to my Facebook page, there's probably more information than you have time to consume right now. My YouTube page, there's a lot of stuff on there. And then, yes, we have several ways that people can engage a little deeper. I do private readings with people on a professional and personal level. We have a private community as well that is it's really like a monthly membership. It is a monthly membership, but it's a monthly mentorship as well. And we have different ways of engaging. We have one option that it gives you actually a lot more content than what's even shared for free on our social media platforms. And it's a lot of teaching and coursework, and it's a really great way to people to dive a little bit deeper, if that's what they so choose. And then we also do right now a weekly broadcast where I do every Monday. We get together, and typically it goes about an hour to 2 hours or so, and we just dive deep. And it's part group horoscope of what the energy is going to be of the week, and it sometimes is business advising, and then it's personal prophecies, and it's a little bit of healing that takes place, and it's teaching, and it's community. If nothing else, it's people getting together and sharing. This is what's going on in my life. Is this happening with anybody else? Does anybody else have any guidance? Because I am probably the primary voice, but I'm not the only voice. Our community is very integrated and connected with each other, and they share their wins and their celebrations, and also the traumas and the dramas of their life too. And they, I would say that's probably really the biggest focus that I try to initiate in our membership is that you all are in this together, and I can't always be there to give you a word from spirit and to give you guidance. And at some point, you've got to trust that internal guidance system in you, and you've got to branch out and trust the community that is being built here. We're all in this together at some level. And so, yeah, that's our membership, and it's totally available for everyone that's looking for a deeper level of engagement with themselves and with spirit. So I invite anyone to just go to the website. All of it's there, and it's we would love to serve you at whatever level you're ready to participate in. So yeah.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for all of that. And thank you for this beautiful dialogue we had today. I really enjoyed this conversation with you, and it was very enlightening. And I feel like we're on the same page about a lot of things. So it feels really good.
Yeah.
And yeah, it feels really, I enjoyed it quite a bit. So I hope you all enjoyed it out there. And please comment, you know, please, if you're watching this on YouTube or you're watching it on the Soul Nectar Show site, definitely leave a comment. Let us know what you thought. Let us know what questions you might have. And also just to let you guys know that Carrie Hummingbird, yours truly here, I am starting a women's circle, Reinvent Yourself. So it's butterfly medicine, and that is starting in January. So if you're interested in that, you can go to my website, and there's a little link that will bring you more information about that, or you can reach out to me personally. So I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Enjoyed this broadcast, and I look forward to our next time on Soul Nectar Show. And so let's give everybody a kiss. Here, come, come. Mwah. Love you guys. Have a wonderful week. Bye, everybody.